They arrested the leaker, the guy who leaked the documents from the Pentagon. But let's start this story here.
That this relationship, on the one hand, between the largest media corporations in the country, and on the other, the intelligence community in particular, is one of subservience and collaboration, is something that we have been writing about and reporting on and talking about for many years. But what happened in the last 48 hours is really a new manifestation of it. It's a completely new escalation. What they're really telling you is they don't even want to pretend anymore what their real function is. They are basically acknowledging to you that their role is to act as servants for the FBI and the CIA. As you know, we've been covering it on our...
So what is he talking about? He's talking about this story in the Washington Post. It says Discord member details how documents leaked from closed chat group. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
It's finally.
We got him.
A picture of Hillary Clinton like this while the camera finds the...
So this is the Washington Post. So there was these leaked documents that came out on some Discord.
Yeah, Discord. It's where a bunch of like gamers go to talk shit, I guess.
So this is a 21-year-old kid or guy, adult. He's in the National Guard. And somehow he has access to intelligence reports, and he's in the National Guard, and he's 21. This is all fishy, all this stuff. But anyway, he starts releasing it on Discords, on gamer sites. Again, all weird. And so the FBI didn't know. Well, guess what? This is from the Washington Post. So this account of how detailed intelligence documents intended for an exclusive circle of military leaders and government decision makers found their way into and then out of OG's closed community. That was his online name, the guy who did it. His name was OG.
He's 21. That's weird.
That's original gangster. It's kind of weird for a 21-year-old to be original gangster.
It's like when young Mormons are called elder. You're an elder? You're an elder?
OG's closed community is based in part on several lengthy interviews with the Discord group member who spoke to the Washington Post on the condition of anonymity. Here, he is under 18. He's 17 years old. So the Washington Post went to this Discord where there's a handful of people that talk to each other. They talked to a 17-year-old kid to get him to turn, hey, who's the guy who leaked it? The Post obtained consent from the member's mother to speak to him and to record his remarks on video. So he revealed that it was this guy.
Wait, he asked that his voice not be obscured?
He asked that his voice not be obscured.
Will you go back one second? Look at that. This account of how detailed intelligence that were intended for an exclusive circle of military leaders and government decision makers.
But somehow he got his hand on it.
A 21-year-old National Guardsman has it.
Got his hands on it, and something that's supposed to be for the exclusive decision makers, right? Exclusive circle of military leaders and government decision makers. Then why does a 21-year-old kid from he's in the National Guard?
I know, it really threw me for a loop. And also, the information is not very exclusive. It's a big pile of shit you already know.
Most of it. So this is the guy, right? So his name is Jack Teixeira, I don't know how you pronounce it. Teixeira. And it says FBI arrests 21-year-old Air National Guardsman suspected of leaking classified. Okay. So when this story in the Washington Post leaked, or when they printed this story, what they were doing was telling the FBI who the guy was. They were in Glenn Greenwald talks about how they were leading a trail of crumbs right to that guy. Now, this is crazy for news people to do this because this guy leaked sensitive information that there's some of it exposed that the government was lying about Ukraine. Two things that they're lying about. One, that we actually have special ops on the ground inside Ukraine. Now, I always just assumed that we did because we covered stories similar to this, and I said that they have people in there. So to regular people, that's a big expose, but to me, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they revealed was that we're spying on our adversaries. But again, everybody. So again, those are two things, I guess. So the other thing. I'm sorry, Kurt. The other thing was that the Biden administration does not expect a peace deal in all of 2023, meaning they don't want one. So those were the two. So, but again, this is something we all. So I don't think those are really big stories. But again, they're big enough, I guess.
You know, it's going to attract a Washington Post scumbag journalist. The fact that he was a gamer. That's one of their favorite.
Yes, it is
dangerous groups.
So what does the Washington Post do? They basically go and do the FBI's job for them. And what does so the FBI finds the guy. And what does Glenn Greenwald have to say about that?
Watched all day today as not a single journalist in corporate media stood up and said, wait a minute, is this really our role? Is it our role now to act as law enforcement where we're gonna expose leakers to the public and ensure they go to prison? Isn't it supposed to be our role to work with leakers and encourage them to come forward and give us information about what the government is doing in secret that is the truth rather than what they're telling the public? Now, journalists play the role of hunting leakers and wanting to see people punished who disclose classified information. But evidently that is not just the role of the Washington Post, but the understanding of the role of almost everybody in corporate media, because virtually nobody stood up and said, wait a minute, we shouldn't be doing this. This is the opposite of our role.
So yes, that's to me, that's the story here.
Well, you understand. I mean, assuming the whole thing isn't a fake op of some kind, and like a gamer who likes memes is like a Taliban in their world.
Oh yes.
So in their minds, they're hunting down like a January 6th terrorist kind of person.
Right.
So that's why.
Well, the fact that they even think January 6 people are actual terrorists, this goes to show you how crazy they are.
They've been building this up for that whole Gamergate nonsense was with the start of this, and all those people moved up into other jobs, and they still think of it as like their 9/11 to this day.
I know,
and they're eternally trying to prove how racist all the.
Well, they're gonna. So you watch. So Glenn has one more thing to say about this. Let's watch.
And yet, the New York Times and the Washington Post, instead of protecting sources, which is the role of journalists, instead has led the way to hunting down this source, to hunting down the leaker, to digging in an investigative way to find out who this leaker is and hand that information over to the FBI. They're handmaidens now of the FBI. I've never seen anything like it before. As journalists, we're supposed to rely on leaks. That's what we need and use in order to do our reporting. The idea that a journalist would be the one to actually go and find out who this leaker is and then reveal it publicly to the FBI is something that, honestly, I didn't even think I would see, notwithstanding that there are a few people who hold them in greater contempt.
So it's fun, for me, it's fun to watch Glenn get apoplectic over bad journalism. Yeah. And the people doing the exact opposite. Do you think he's kidding about? So here they all went down to the Pentagon, all the reporters, and they weren't upset that, hey, these leaks revealed that the government was lying and you actually do have soldiers in Ukraine, and that the government has no intention of having a peace deal for the whole year. It's April, and they say not through the end of 2023. What is going on, and why? They didn't ask any of those questions. Do you want to hear the questions they did ask? Glenn, they put this together over at his show. Watch this.
Okay, in the days after the leaks came to light, what steps has DoD taken to reduce the number of people who have access to not only these classified briefings, but the classified material in general?
So they're upset that, and I'm going to show you about 10 more of these. So the reporters are upset. Not that the government got caught lying again, but they're upset that someone leaked this information that, by the way, they're all writing stories on. So they're upset that is the Pentagon going to crack down on this kind of leaking? Real reporters would be doing cartwheels over these kind of. They'd be so happy that they found a leaker, and then they would try to cultivate more leakers. That's what reporters are supposed to do. But these reporters are angry. They want the government and the Pentagon to crack down on leakers. These are journalists. Remember this, and that's why Glenn Greenwald was so apoplectic. This is the opposite of what journalists. But I'll play you this video. It's kind of funny. Watch.
But you are taking steps to tighten that, I guess, population who might have access to this level of information.
General Ryder, you say that there are strict protocols in place, and yet a 21-year-old airman was able to access some of the nation's top secrets. How did this happen, and isn't this a massive security breach? What is your message to anyone who might be thinking of leaking these kind of documents in the future?
Can you tell us, are there less people who have access to this type of information today than there were a week ago?
To follow on that, these documents were available long before April 5th and 6th. So what took so long for DOD and the intelligence communities to locate these documents?
Are you going to release this airman's service record?
They're upset.
What technologies is the Pentagon applying right now to both spot leaked documents online and track potential indicators of leaking type practices?
These are journalists upset about leaks from the Pentagon, and they want to know how the Pentagon's going to clamp down on them.
Okay,
God.
How many of them do you think are wearing masks in that press conference? Most?
This is the opposite. This is like Chris Christie wanting stricter enforcement on the buffet closing hours. It says 9 o'clock. It closes at 9, not 9:01. This is the opposite of what. Here, there's more. Let's watch.
Do you plan to be investing in more?
Given the gravity of the situation, are you actively paring down the distribution list now? Is this a process that's moving quickly? Or is it going to take time for there to be meaningful substantive changes to the distribution? And then is DOD or has DOD taken additional measures to restrict the access to classified information of others in the Massachusetts?
This is the opposite of what report.
Sort of as a follow-on to Carla and Brandy's questions, can you say whether DOD has anyone looking at chat rooms on Discord, for example, or other social media platforms right now for leaked information? And if not, should DOD have these people?
This is why I think it's crazy fake is the Discord thing. If they're like, are you going to crack down on Discord?
That's right. So here it comes. So then the Washington Post story wasn't enough. Then the New York Times did him one better. They went and outed the guy completely. The National Guardsman, whose name is Jack, how do you say it? Teixeira oversaw a private online group called Thug Shaker Central, where about 20 to 30 people, mostly young men and teenagers, came together over a shared love of guns, racist online memes. You predicted it, Kurt. And video games.
The dark triad, they call it.
First of all, the guy's in the military and he has a love of guns. See how right away they want you to hate the guy. The guy's a white supremacist. He's a racist.
Video games.
And guns. He's in the military.
Hey, how much you want to take a bet that if you saw the memes, they're probably not racist?
He loved guns, video games, and memes, Kurt. A 21-year-old soldier right under our noses this whole time? Thank God they got this monster.
You saw the picture of him, too.
So on Thursday afternoon, about a half dozen FBI agents pushed into a residence in North Dighton, Massachusetts. Attorney General Merrick Garland later said in a short statement that Airman Teixeira had been arrested without incident. Now here's the important part. Federal investigators had been searching for days for the person who leaked the top secret documents online. Yeah, and that's where the New York Times and the Washington Post came in and let everybody know who it was.
They should have got to make the collar, like cuff him?
Yes.
The reporter should get to cuff him.
The FBI got beat by the Washington Post tracking down a gamer. They should lose half their budget for that. Yeah. The FBI made. New York Times spoke with 4 members of the Thug Shaker Central chat group, one of whom said do you understand that what the Post and the New York Times are doing is the job of the FBI? That they're trying to out leakers instead of going crazy about what they leaked? They're upset that there's someone being a whistleblower inside the government. Do you see how crazy this is? So New York Times spoke with 4 members of the Thug Shaker Central chat group, one of whom said he has known the person who leaked for at least 3 years, had met him in person, and referred to him as the OG. The friends described him as older than most of the group members who were in their teens. And he was the undisputed leader. One of the friends said that OG had access to intelligence documents through his job. Okay. While the gaming friends would not identify the group's leader by name, the frickin' New York Times will, and so will the Washington Post. A trail of digital evidence compiled by the Times leads to airmen. So they did it.
Wow, not since Taylor Lorenz brought down libs of TikTok have I seen such fine
They're doing this is the opposite, Kurt, of what journalists, they're doing the job of the FBI.
Zero Dork 30 coming soon.
The thing that's actually most shocking about this is that the FBI wasn't already spying on the Discord, right?
Yeah, why would I thought that because Discord is another owned by China ultimately, or
Is it?
like a company from China that's compiling information. So I don't know why that wasn't in the TikTok hearings, why they weren't already talking about that.
Maybe this is to get.
Yeah, that's what my guess is.
The New York Times has been able to link Airman Texeria to other members of the Thug Shaker Central Group through his online gaming profile and other records. Details of the interior of Airman Texeria's childhood home, posted on social media and his family photographs, also match details on the margins of some of the photographs of the leaked secret documents. This is what this is what the FBI is supposed to do. This is not what journalists are supposed to do to leakers. You're supposed to cheer him on. But they hate him because the New York Times and the Washington Post actually work for the intelligence agencies. That's what this is. And if there's going to be leaks, and they leak stuff to them all the time. Like all the stuff they leaked about Trump and Russiagate, all that stuff was all leaked from the CIA and the FBI. I mean, the whole Iraq war. So the White House would leak top secret documents to the New York Times that said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. The New York Times would print them on the front page. Then the White House would point to the New York Times and say, look, they got weapons of mass destruction. It's right on the front page, and we got to go. So that's how this game works. So they love leaks. They just hate this particular leaker because he didn't play their game. He wasn't giving it directly to him. But I also think it's still sketchy, Kurt.
I have a hard time believing that the FBI couldn't find the 21-year-old National Guardsman. I have a hard time believing that Washington Post were able to get him first. Like I just really like.
So let's watch. So I don't.
No,
I don't actually. They're not. I know people in the FBI. They're freaking they're morons. Lots of them. Look how the guys got caught. They were texting each other about how we're going to stop Trump. The guy in charge of investigating Trump. He said we're going to stop him from being president.
I'm sorry.
And he knows that he's going to get his shit subpoenaed. And he's one of the top FBI guys.
Not the FBI, but the government intelligence. Like this kid's got access to this stuff. They must know who's allowed to access it.
You're right. It seems super sketchy. But anyway, let's watch Glenn Greenwald get upset about it one more time.
It is remarkable. I mean, if you actually think about it, it is remarkable. Let's remember that
I like to watch this.
Function of journalism is supposed to be to try and cultivate sources who have access to this sort of information. When you have a leaker of classified information, and the New York Times has been reporting on these documents, they've been going through these documents and writing article after article after article, discussing what it is that they reveal.
So they've been doing articles on the stuff that this leaker revealed, but
obviously necessarily signifying that the judgment of the New York Times journalistically is that these documents have real value to the public. The New York Times has been using them in their reporting day after day after day. Now, it is ingrained in you as a journalist that your central overarching duty is to protect people who do this. You're supposed to shield them from being found out. You're supposed to guide them to use encrypted channels so that they're not caught by the government. You're supposed to provide them with secure means.
You're supposed to keep people like this from getting caught by the government, not handing them over to the government. Anyway, let's back to Glenn.
In order to enable this information to be given to the public. And remember, so sacred is this journalistic duty to protect sources and try and help them avoid exposure, that if you're a journalist and you get subpoenaed by the government or the courts, and the court orders you to testify about the identity of your source, the person who provided you classified information, you're expected to go to jail. You're expected to refuse to disclose their name and instead go to jail in order to protect your source. And here the New York Times and the Washington Post are doing exactly the opposite. They're working for the FBI and revealing that information to ensure that this source ends up in prison.
So They've been doing that a lot. Oh, he points out there's a guy at the Huffington Post, Ryan J. Riley, who brags about that he's been helping the FBI reveal who the January 6th protesters were. He's doing the work of the FBI.
Okay, so I looked up this guy Shane Harris, who's one of the. I didn't look up the other one yet, Oakford, but the Wall Post story. So this is what it says.
Oh, the guy who wrote the Washington Post story. This is who you looked up.
There's one of them. There's another one named Oakford that I haven't looked.
Okay.
But he's an intelligence national security reporter. Shane Harris has written about intelligence, security, and foreign policy for more than 2 decades. He's a staff writer with WAPO covering U.S. intelligence agencies and national security. He was part of the team that won the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for public service for stories about the January 6th attack on the Capitol and efforts to overturn the presidential election. In 2019, he was part of the team that was a finalist for the Public Service Award for the coverage of the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Mm-hmm.
And he's this guy's I think he's probably like a fake. That's what I think.
Well, no, those guys just get their stories handed to them by the intelligence community. Yeah,
yeah, that's what he's a guy that just gets his thing, and then you get your public service
award. Stringer. I don't know. Is that what they call him?
A jobber.
But so the bigger point is that it's the Washington Post and the New York Times who are doing this, right? They're not trying to protect the leaker. They're trying to hand him over to the FBI. But Glenn brought up there's several points, but I'll just bring up one about when the government leaked and then the news media loved it. And so you remember when General Flynn was Trump's national security advisor, and on the way into office, General Flynn had a phone call with the Russian diplomat, his counterpart, Kislyak is his name, and they talked about sanctions that Barack Obama and Obama's administration were thinking about putting on Russia or had put on. So they had a conversation about it. Well, the NSA was spying on Kislyak, the Russian ambassador. And so they got his phone call with him. They leaked that phone call. Now, when a person gets classified information and they leak it to a reporter, it's legal for the reporter to print it. In every case, except like 3. One of them is this. So what the reporters did there by printing that leak was actually criminal. Because what happened was you're not supposed to, as a journalist, be able to release intelligence that was gathered through taps on foreign governments. Why is that? Why would that still be a crime? Because in this case, so now Kislyak finds out, oh, the NSA is now spying on my phone conversations. So now I'm going to change the way I communicate. So now the government can't spy on me anymore. So that's why that would still be a crime, because it endangers our overseas security work for real. They did it anyway. They revealed it. They revealed that conversation, which, again, is against the law. There's a specific law for this. It's this one that says you can't disclose that, even if you're a journalist, if it's a phone conversation with a foreign person, because of exactly what I just told you. Nobody cared. Everybody was happy. Why? Because it was Trump. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to know. Nobody still has found out who leaked that. Nobody even wants to know. So, just to let you know one more thing. So, when Edward Snowden revealed that the United States government was doing illegal spying and surveillance on all of us, the Washington Post ran stories on it. And they won a Pulitzer Prize for the stories they wrote on the NSA spying on American citizens. And then when it came time to pardon Edward Snowden for leaking that, the Washington Post said, no, he shouldn't be pardoned. They are proud to go win their Pulitzer Prize based on the documents Edward Snowden leaked about the crimes American government was committing. But they don't think that guy deserves to not be in prison. Do you see how they're horrible people? And that's because it wasn't leaked to Go ahead. What do you want to say?
The other guy, Samuel Oakford,
who wrote the Washington Post article?
Well, he's a video reporter for the Washington Post visual forensics team.
Visual forensic team.
The ones that figured out they didn't change Joe Rogan's skin color kind of work, right?
Yeah.
Before joining the Post, he worked as a senior journalist at Storyful and a reporter for Vice News at the United Nations.
All CIA.
He was also a reporter for the civilian harm monitor Air Wars and conducted open source investigations for Bellingcat's Yemen project.
Oh, there you go.
He won a prize for humanitarian coverage.
So a lot of his journalism, that guy who wrote that Washington Post article, was funded directly by the government of the United States. Because the Bellingcat, which is where he worked, gets money directly from the government and the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA cutout. So that these people who you think are journalists are just mouthpieces for the CIA. They sometimes work directly for them. So that's who those two guys are who wrote the Washington Post article, who outed this guy. They're CIA operatives. So that's the real story here. Is that now they don't even try to pretend it. Here, let me go back to Glenn's first video that I played.
The fact that this relationship, on the one hand, between the largest media corporations in the country, and on the other, the intelligence community in particular, is one of subservience and collaboration, is something that we have been writing about and reporting on and talking about for many years. But what happened in the last 48 hours is really a new manifestation of it. It's a completely new escalation.
It's a new escalation of the media working hand in hand with the surveillance state and the government.
Well, didn't it become legal in 2011 with the Smith Modernization Act that Obama signed? That now they can put propaganda directly into your...
The government can do propaganda on you. So that, to me, that's the story. We're telling jokes in Nashville, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, Cohoes, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Baltimore, Chicago, Rosemont, San Diego, and more. Go to jimmydore.com to get a link for all those tickets. Plus, you can watch my new special, COVID Lies Are Funny.